The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets overhead, casting jagged shadows across the H&M fitting room mirrors that made my reflection look like a stranger. Pale skin stretched too tight over bones I hadn't bothered to feed properly in weeks. I was midway through tugging off a too-tight chambray shirt, sweat beading on my neck from the stuffy air, when the curtain ripped open without a knock, without a breath of warning. There he stood, the employee I'd caught stealing glances at me all afternoon, his name tag crooked like he'd pinned it on in a rush. Jackson? Read. In that generic sans serif font, and before I could snarl, "What the hell?" His hands were on my bare waist, pulling me into him with a hunger that tasted like desperation, his lips crashing against mine in the cramped space that suddenly felt like the center of the goddamn universe. I shoved him back, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. But his eyes, storm gray and wild, held me pinned more than any grip could. "I've been watching you," he whispered, voice rough as gravel, thumb brushing the bruise blooming on my lower lip from the force of that kiss. "All day." And I couldn't. I just couldn't wait anymore. The words hung there, electric and wrong, in the middle of a Manhattan store on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, with the distant chatter of shoppers filtering through like static from another life. My name is Ryder Hayes, and up until that moment, I'd convinced myself I was done with chaos, done with men who looked at me like I was their salvation, only to leave me picking up the shards. But Jackson? He wasn't just chaos. He was the kind that rewired your soul before you even realized the plug had been pulled. It started, like most disasters in New York, with a bad decision disguised as self-care. I dragged myself out of my Bushwick apartment that morning, the kind of gray November day where the sky presses down on the city like it's trying to squeeze out every last drop of color. My roommate, Lena, a chain-smoking graphic designer with a tattoo of Frida Kahlo on her thigh, had shoved a coffee into my hand at dawn and barked, "Go buy something that doesn't smell like regret." You're turning into a ghost. She wasn't wrong. At 28, I was a freelance photographer scraping by on gigs for indie bands and forgotten poets. My camera bag heavier than my portfolio these days. The breakup with Theo 6 months prior had hollowed me out. He'd been the one who promised forever in a Brooklyn dive bar, then ghosted me for a tech bro in Silicon Valley, leaving behind nothing but a sublet lease and a drawer full of his hoodies that still smelled like his cologne. H&M on Fifth Avenue was my Hail Mary, a quick fix of new threads to fake some semblance of moving on. The store was a zoo, holiday pop blasting from speakers, pre-teens swarming the graphic tees, and harried parents dodging impulse buys. I weaved through the racks, grabbing a few button-downs and jeans that might pass for put together, my mind already drifting to the Thai takeout I'd reward myself with later. That's when I first noticed him. Jackson. He was restocking hoodies in the men's section, his lean frame moving with this effortless grace that made the fluorescent hellscape feel almost cinematic. Mid-20s? Maybe. With tousled black hair that curled at the nape of his neck, a jaw carved like it belonged on a Subway ad, and arms inked with swirling tattoos that peeked from under his rolled-up sleeves, abstract waves crashing into geometric shapes. The kind of art that screamed, "Story untold." Our eyes met over a pile of distressed denim. He smiled, not the sales pitch grin of minimum wage purgatory, but something real, crooked, like he'd just remembered a secret joke. "Need help finding your size?" he asked, voice low and laced with that faint southern drawl that always undid me, the kind that evoked humid Georgia nights I'd only read about in novels. I mumbled a no, cheeks heating despite myself, and bolted for the fitting rooms like a coward. But he lingered in my periphery, shadowing my path with casual restocks, his gaze brushing mine in the mirrors like a touch I hadn't asked for. By the third shirt I tried on, a slim-fit Oxford that hugged my shoulders just right, I was half convinced it was paranoia. New York does that, turns strangers into specters. I was zipping up jeans, cursing the mirror for adding 5 pounds to my runner's build, when the curtain flew open. And then, his mouth on mine, hot and insistent, tasting of spearmint gum and the faint salt of unspoken need. My back hit the cool wall, the hook of a hanger digging into my spine. But I didn't pull away. Not at first. His hands mapped my sides like he was memorizing fault lines, fingers trembling just enough to betray the bravado. When we broke apart, gasping, the fitting room felt smaller, the air thick with the scent of his citrus cologne mingling with the vinyl of the bench. "Shit," he breathed, forehead pressed to mine, eyes squeezed shut like he was bracing for the fallout. "I'm sorry. You looked at me like you saw me. Not the vest. Not the name tag. Me." His voice cracked on the last word, raw as an exposed wire, and something in my chest twisted. Recognition? Maybe. Of that same hunger I'd buried under layers of cynicism. I should have reported him. Called security, stormed out with my half-zipped jeans and a story for Lena that would have made her cackle over wine. But instead, I grabbed his wrist, the pulse there rabbit-fast under my thumb. "What's your real name?" Best. Because in that moment, Jackson felt like a costume. To broken sound, and leaned in again, this time slower, lips grazing my jaw as he murmured, "It's Jax. Jax." "And yours, Ryder," I said, the syllable slipping out like a confession. We didn't kiss again. Not yet. But as he slipped out, leaving the curtain swaying like a guilty afterthought, he pressed a crumpled receipt into my palm, his number scrawled in Sharpie, alongside a winking emoji that felt dangerously like hope. That night, rain lashed my apartment windows like it was punishing the city for sins unspoken. I paced the creaky hardwood, phone burning a hole in my pocket, Lena's eyes narrowing over her sketchpad from the couch. "You look like you swallowed a lightning bolt." I told her everything, the glances, because the note, like it was a fever dream, expecting her to roll her eyes and prescribe a cold shower. Instead, she grinned, fierce and knowing. "Go for it, dummy. Life's too short for safe bets." Says, "That southern boy sounds like trouble worth chasing." She was right, as always. By midnight, my thumbs hovered over the screen, then typed, "Fitting room fell in here. Coffee tomorrow? 2 p.m. That spot on Bleecker with the killer lattes." His reply buzzed back in seconds, "You're on, Ryder. But fair warning, I'm all in." All in. The words lodged in my throat, sweet and sharp. As I crashed into bed, the city's hum a lullaby laced with what-ifs. The next day dawned crisp, the kind of autumn bite that turns Central Park into a postcard of crimson and gold. I arrived early at the cafe, exposed brick walls dripping with ivy, the air thick with espresso and indie folk, nursing a black coffee that did nothing to steady my nerves. Theo had started like this, casual meetup, easy laughs, promises whispered over shared plates. But Jax, when he walked in, shaking rain from his beanie, shoulders hunched against the chill in a threadbare denim jacket. He didn't scan for exits. He zeroed in on me like I was the only warm thing in the room, sliding into the booth with a grin that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Up close, without the store's glare, he was even more disarming, faint freckles dusting his nose, a scar slicing through his left eyebrow like a question mark, lips perpetually on the verge of a smirk. "So," he started, stealing a sip of my coffee with zero apology, "you didn't bolt." "That's gotta mean something." I laughed, genuine, rusty from disuse, and countered, "Or it means I'm a glutton for bad ideas." "What's a guy like you doing slinging sweaters in Midtown anyway?" He leaned back, fingers drumming the table in a rhythm that matched the patter outside. "Chasing ghosts?" "Mostly. Grew up in Savannah, big family, bigger expectations. Dad's a preacher, mom's the choir director. The whole be a man, marry a nice girl script." His drawl thickened on the words, laced with old wounds. "I bolted at 18, bounced around the South till New York swallowed me whole. But rent's a bitch. And H&M pays just enough to keep the lights on." He paused, eyes dropping to his scarred knuckles, remnants of a bar fight. He later confessed, and added softly, "But seeing you yesterday felt like the first real breath in years." We talked for hours, the world blurring into steam-fogged windows and half-eaten scones. He confessed his love for obscure vinyl, Tom Waits bootlegs and Sufjan Stevens deep cuts, and how he'd sneak Polaroids of street art on his breaks, dreaming of a gallery show that never came. I shared my darkroom disasters, the way light bent through lenses like truth through lies, and how Theo's exit had me questioning if love was just a series of well-lit illusions. By the time we spilled onto the sidewalk, dusk painting the streets in bruised purples, his hand brushed mine, tentative. Then sure, and I didn't pull away. We walked to my subway stop, shoulders bumping in the crowd, and when he kissed me goodbye, soft, lingering, under the awning of a bodega that smelled like fresh empanadas, it ignited something dormant, a spark that warmed the hollows Theo had left. That week blurred into a montage of stolen moments, late-night texts that devolved into voice notes of husky laughter, impromptu picnics in Washington Square where he'd feed me falafel bites with fingers that lingered too long on my lips. Jax was a whirlwind, impulsive, and the kind of guy who'd ditch a shift to chase a sunset from the Brooklyn Bridge. Camera slung over his shoulder as he captured me mid-laugh, wind-tousled and unguarded. "You're my favorite shot," he'd murmur, nuzzling my neck, and I'd melt, forgetting the red flags fluttering in my periphery, his phone always on silent, the way he'd tense at mentions of family, the H&M schedule that seemed to swallow his weekends whole. One Friday, after a gig shooting a queer poetry slam in the Village, where I'd captured Jax in the crowd, eyes locked on the stage like he was devouring every word, I pulled him into a dimly lit bar off Christopher Street. The place was a relic, velvet booths scarred by decades of secrets, rainbow flags frayed at the edges, a jukebox crooning Billie Holiday like a confessor. We claimed a corner table, knees knocking under the scarred wood, shots of whiskey burning trails down our throats. To us, I toasted, clinking glasses, the word plus feeling foreign and fragile on my tongue. He echoed it, but his smile faltered, gray eyes clouding like an incoming storm. "Ryder, there's something I need to tell you." My stomach nodded. Theo's ghost whispering, "Here it comes." But Jax reached across, palm cupping my cheek, thumb tracing the scar on my chin from a childhood bike wreck. I'm falling for you. The kind where I wake up plotting ways to make you smile before coffee. Relief flooded me, hot and dizzying, and I kissed him there, and hurried, the bar's murmur fading to white noise. We stumbled back to my place as the clock struck midnight, rain-slick streets reflecting neon like fractured promises. Lena was out, bless her chaotic soul, and the apartment felt vast. Jax's jacket hit the floor first. A trail of denim and cotton leading to my bedroom like breadcrumbs to forbidden fruit. His skin was fever-warm under my hands. Tattoos a roadmap I traced with lips and tongue, the wave on his forearm curling toward his elbow. Symbol of tides he couldn't outrun. He was reverent, kisses like prayers along my collarbone, whispers of beautiful against my hip bones, as if I'd been the one waiting to be discovered. When he moved above me, slow and sure, our breaths sinking in the dark, it wasn't just release. It was reclamation, two fractured souls soldering at the seams. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, he propped on an elbow, fingers idly combing my hair. Promise me something, he said, voice thick with sleep and something heavier. No matter what, we fight for this. I nodded, throat tight, murmuring assent into his chest. The steady thump of his heart a lullaby I wanted to believe in forever. But forever, in New York, has a habit of crumbling under its own weight. The first fracture appeared 2 weeks later, innocuous as a skip text. I'd wrapped a shoot for a local zine, moody portraits of drag queens in abandoned warehouses, and fired off a miss you already to Jax at lunch. Nothing. By evening, still radio silence. I chalked it up to back-to-back shifts. H&M's holiday rush was brutal. He'd griped about it over takeout the night before, his calf hooked around mine under the coffee table. But when I swung by the store after dark, the plate glass windows glowing like judgmental eyes, he wasn't there. A coworker, a lanky kid with blue-streaked hair, shrugged from behind the register. Jax? Called out sick. Third time this month. Sick. The word sat wrong, oily in my gut. I texted Lena from the subway, Jax ghosting. Coincidence or curse? Her reply pinged back, curse your pretty ass to bed. Talk tomorrow. But sleep evaded me. The ceiling fan whirring accusations as I replayed our last night, the way he'd buried his face in my neck post-climax. Body shuddering like he'd surfaced from drowning. I love you, he'd said then. Unprompted. The L word slipping out like a sigh. I'd frozen, heart jackhammering, before whispering it back. Too soon. Too raw. But undeniable. Morning brought a terse sorry. Family stuff. Dinner tonight? No details. No apology beyond the shorthand. I swallowed the unease. Met him at a hole-in-the-wall Italian joint in Little Italy, where checkered tablecloths hid marinara stains like polite lies. He looked wrecked, shadows bruising under his eyes. Jaw clenched tight enough to crack walnuts. But he smiled when he saw me, that crooked flash of teeth, and pulled me into a hug that lingered, his chin resting on my crown. Good. I needed this, he muttered, inhaling me like air after asphyxiation. Over plates of veal parm that neither of us touched. He deflected with stories, a botched tattoo he'd inked on a buddy in college. The time he'd hitchhiked from Atlanta to Nashville for a music festival on a whim. I prodded gently, family stuff? And he stiffened, Fork scraping ceramic like nails on chalkboard. Dad's not doing great. Heart scare last month. Mom's writing me to come home for Thanksgiving. Savannah. The ghost town of his youth. All magnolias and Bible verses that choked like kudzu. You going, Beth? Careful as threading a needle. His laugh was bitter, chased with candy. Trying not to. Last time I visited, it ended with Dad quoting Leviticus at the dinner table. Called it a phase. The word hung. Venomous. And I reached for his hand, cold. Trembling, squeezing until warmth seeped back. You're not a phase. You're everything. He searched my face. Storms clearing to sunlight. And kissed my knuckles. Slow and solemn. Come with me? To Savannah. Be my anchor. The ask blindsided me. Equal parts thrill and terror. Meet the preacher? Face the family that had branded him? But his eyes, pleading, vulnerable, tipped the scale. Yeah, I said. Pulse roaring. I've got your back. That night, we made love with an urgency born of looming goodbyes, his mouth mapping my ribs like a cartographer charting safe harbors, my nails raking his back in silent vows. As dawn crept through the blinds, painting his skin in stripes of gold, he traced my lips with a fingertip. What if they hate you? Because of me? Then they hate wrong, I replied, just pulling him closer. I was learning, wasn't a shelter. It was a shield, forged in fire. The weeks to Thanksgiving blurred in a frenzy of prep, me dodging client calls to help him pack. Lena drilling me on Southern survival tips over pumpkin ale. Don't mention the gays. Don't touch the grits. And for God's sake, hide the rainbow socks. Jax grew quieter, though, nights spent staring at his phone. Thumbs hovering over unsent texts to a number labeled Mom. I'd catch him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., nursing black coffee, eyes distant as the tracks leading south. Talk to me, I'd urge, wrapping arms around his waist from behind, chin on his shoulder. But the words stayed locked. A vault I couldn't crack. We boarded the Amtrak at Penn Station on a frost-kissed Tuesday, the Hudson blurring past like watercolor regrets. Jax's knee bounced the whole ride, 6 hours of tense silence broken by my bad jokes and his half-hearted chuckles. Savannah greeted us with humid embrace. Spanish moss draping oaks like funeral veils. The air thick with salt and secrets. His childhood home squatted on a quiet street in the historic district. A shotgun bungalow with peeling blue paint. Porch swing creaking in the breeze. A cross etched into the welcome mat like a warning. His mom answered the door, mid-50s? With Jax's gray eyes softened by crow's feet and a smile that didn't reach them. Darlin', she drawled, hugging him stiffly before turning to me. Appraisal sharp as a switchblade. And you must be Ryder. Jax's friend from the city. The pause lingered, bloated. But I extended a hand. Said he. Pleasure, ma'am. Thanks for having me. Dad hovered in the hall, Reverend Harlan. Broad as oak. Mustache twitching like it hid sermons unspoken. His handshake crushed mine. Eyes boring into my soul. Welcome, son. We pray the Lord guides your steps. Dinner was a minefield, turkey dry as doctrine, yams candied with unspoken judgments. Jax sat ramrod beside me, picking at his plate, while Eleanor peppered us with questions. New York's so fast, how do you keep faith in all that noise? And Harlan grunted approvals. I fielded with nods and smiles, foot nudging Jax's under the table in silent solidarity. But as pie was served, sticky sweet, Harlan cleared his throat, the room hushing like a confessional. Jackson tells us you're in photography. Capturing the world. But some images fade if they're not rooted in truth. Jax's fork clattered, face paling. Dad, but Harlan plowed on, voice booming like pulpit thunder. We've prayed on this. But your mother's seen the light, counseling. Real change. It's not too late to come home. Set things right with the flock. The air thickened, suffocating. As realization dawned, the sick calls. The silences, they weren't heart scares. They were conversion camps. Veiled threats wrapped in scripture. Jax shoved back his chair, eyes blazing. This is why I left. You think love's a sin to scrub clean? He grabbed my hand, storming out to the porch, the screen door slamming like Judgment Day. Followed, finding him hunched on the swing, breaths ragged. Ryder, I should have told you. They're pushing this pray the gay away bullshit. Hired some quack therapist. Rage boiled in me, not at him, but them, for wielding faith like a whip. We're out of here. First train north. But he shook his head, tears carving tracks down his cheeks. Can't. Not yet. She's breaking. Dad's got her convinced I'm possessed. We sat there, entwined in the humid dark, fireflies winking like distant stars. As he confessed it all, the teenage hookups hidden in church basements, the disownment threats that drove him north, the guilt that gnawed like termites. That night, in the guest room with its floral quilt and Bible on the nightstand, we made love quietly, desperate, defiant, his body arching under mine like a rebuke to the walls that judged us. I love you, he gasped, fingers digging crescents into my shoulders. And I echoed it, a mantra against the creeping doubt. Thanksgiving dawn brought no miracles. Eleanor cornered me in the kitchen over coffee, eyes pleading. He was our golden boy. Ryder. Altar-bound. But this lifestyle. It's killing Harlan. Lifestyle. The word sliced. Reductive as a scalpel. It's not a choice, ma'am. It's him. And I love him. All of him. She wilted, hand fluttering to her throat. Pray for us. We're lost. We fled that afternoon. Jax's goodbye hug to her lingering too long. Harlan's nod curt from the doorway. The train north was a blur of recriminations, me raging at the hypocrisy, him silent, staring at the window like it held absolution. Back in Bushwick, reality crashed. A eviction notice slipped under my door, late rent. Again. And Jax's phone exploding with voicemails, Eleanor's sobs. Harlan's ultimatums. Come home alone. Or lose us forever. He spiraled after that. Shifts at H&M became marathons. He'd collapse into bed reeking of retail despair, avoiding my touch like it burned. What's happening? I demanded one night, straddling him on the couch, forcing eye contact. We're in this. He deflated, confessions spilling like bile. I lied. Ryder. About everything. The tattoos? Ink from a parlor I never owned. The music dreams? Bullshit to sound deep. And you? Good. You're the first real thing. But I'm terrified I'll ruin you like they ruined me. But the word echoed. Theo's betrayal resurfacing like a bad tattoo. But I saw the truth in his fractures. The boy who'd fled firebrands. The man clawing for grace. Then stop running, I said, kissing his eyelids shut. From them. From us. Winter clamped down on the city like a vice. Snowplows growling through streets that glittered with ice-slick malice. December brought holiday lights that mocked our dimming spark, Rockefeller's tree a gaudy sentinel. Fifth Avenue windows at H&M dressed in faux fur and forced cheer. Jax threw himself into overtime, volunteering for Black Friday graveyards, coming home with blistered feet and eyes hollowed by fluorescent fatigue. Gotta save for a fresh start, he'd mutter, collapsing beside me. But the cash vanished into vague bills, remittances to Savannah. I suspected guilt money to appease ghosts. I confronted him on a rare night off. Post a disastrous office party gig where drunk execs pawed my camera like it was a toy. The apartment reeked of pine from Lena's thrift store tree. Ornaments clinking like wind chimes in the draft. You're bleeding out for them. What's next? Wiring your soul. Q-based? Beanie yanked low over bedhead. Tattoos flexing with each agitated stride. It's not that simple. Mom called. Dad's had a real stroke this time. If I don't go. If I don't. Fix this. The euphemism for erasure. For becoming the son they could stomach. I grabbed his arm, halting the whirlwind. Fix what? Because that's what this feels like. His face crumpled, and he sank to the floor, back against the radiator, pulling me down with him. I don't know how to love without breaking. Writer. They wired me that way, spare the rod, spoil the child. Every time I touch you, I hear the sermons. Tears streaked his cheeks. Hot against my neck as he buried there, body shaking. I held him through it, rocking like a prayer, whispering fragments of poetry I'd memorized from slams. We are the ones we have been waiting for. But doubt crept in. Insidious as the cold seeping through cracks. Was I anchor or anchorite? Chaining him to a sinking ship? Christmas Eve found us at Lena's insistence. A potluck in her Williamsburg loft. Fairy lights strung like spiderwebs. Queer friends crammed elbow to elbow swapping stories over spiked eggnog. Jax thawed there, amidst the chosen family, laughing at a queen's lip sync to Mariah. Slow dancing with me to All I Want for Christmas Is You, in the corner. His breath warm on my ear. This, he murmured. Hands splayed over my heart. This is home. We made promises in the dim glow, New Year's resolutions to therapy, to boundaries with Savannah, to building without blueprints. But promises, like snowmen, melt under scrutiny. New Year's dawned with a voicemail that shattered the fragile peace, Eleanor's voice. Fractured and faint. Honey. Your father's gone. Stroke took him quick. Come home. Please. The words landed like shrapnel. Jax played it on speaker. Face ashen. Then bolted to the bathroom. Retching as if purging the grief. I pounded the door, let me in. But he emerged hollowed. Eyes vacant. I have to go. Alone. The argument that followed was volcanic. Me accusing him of flight over fight. Him hurling back that I couldn't understand blood's pull. The altar boy guilt etched into his marrow. You think love fixes everything? It doesn't. It just Hurts more when it fails. His voice broke on the last, and he stormed out, jacket flapping like a flag of surrender. I sank to the kitchen tile, phone clutched like a lifeline, dialing Lena at 2 a.m. He's leaving me for them. Again. She arrived with donuts and diatribes. Fuck his daddy issues. You're the prize. But the seed was planted. Betrayal. Not in bedsheets, but in the quiet abdication of us. He returned at dawn. Snow-dusted and defeated, collapsing into my arms with sobs that racked us both. I can't bury him without you, he gasped. Lips blue from cold. But after? I don't know. We flew south that week, funeral black against magnolia blooms. The church a Gothic beast with stained glass saints weeping judgment. Harlan's casket gleamed mahogany. Eulogies droning of faithful servant, but Jax's tribute cracked the facade. He tried to love me his way. I wish I'd shown him mine sooner. Eleanor clung to him post-service, whispering, your father's at peace. Now you. The word twisted like kudzu. But Jax nodded, Josette, and we escaped to a motel on the outskirts, neon sign flickering vacancy like a dare. That night, grief transmogrified into something feral. We tore at each other on musty sheets, bites and bruises blooming like defiant flowers. His nails carving my back as he chanted my name like exorcism. Don't let me go, he begged. Climax shattering him open, tears mingling with sweat. Never, I vowed, meaning it. Even as the secret gnawed, his phone, glimpsed in the glove box, buzzing with texts from Caleb, a cousin, a confidant, that read too intimate, missed you last night. Come back soon. January thawed the city into slushy indifference. But our rhythm faltered. Jax landed a bartending gig at a dive in the East Village, better tips. Flexible hours, but he'd vanish post-shift. Blaming inventory. I'd lie awake, tracing constellations on the ceiling, camera idle on the nightstand, framing shots in my mind of a life unraveling. Lena noticed first. He's got that haunted look. Like a dog that knows the pound's calling. I brushed it off, love's not ledger keeping, but the ledger balanced when I tailed him one rainy Thursday. Curiosity a sharper blade than trust. The bar was a haze of neon and regret, sticky floors, jukebox wailing Springsteen, patrons nursing pints like confessions. Jax poured with flair, dimples flashing for tips, but his eyes scanned the door like a man awaiting pardon. At 1 a.m., as the crowd thinned, the figure sipped built like a linebacker in a cashmere coat that screamed old money. Caleb. They hugged too long, then vanished into the back alley, my heart plummeting as I peered through fogged glass. Minutes stretched eternal, then laughter, muffled, and a kiss, Jax's hands fisting Caleb's collar, bodies pressing against brick in the sodium glow. Betrayal. The word detonated, shards embedding deep. I fled before they spotted me. Subway ride home a blur of hot tears and heaving sobs. Lena's door yielding to my frantic knocks. He's cheating, I choked, collapsing into her arms. With some preppy asshole. All this time, she held me through the dawn. Fury and comfort in equal measure. Burn his shit. Block his s. Thrive without the liar, but the wound festered. Love curdling to loathing laced with longing. I confronted him that evening. Apartment a battlefield of strewn clothes and unspoken indictments. Who's Caleb? I demanded. Voice steady as rebar. Phone thrust forward with a screenshot I'd snapped from afar, grainy. Damning. Jax froze in the doorway. Keys jangling like alarm bells. Color draining from his face. Ryder. It's not, don't, I snarled. The hook from that fitting room 2 months past twisting in my gut. Save the spin. I saw you. Allie. Lips and lies. He deflated. Sinking to the futon. Head in hands. The confession poured out in fragments. Caleb. High school sweetheart from Savannah. Closeted quarterback who'd fled to Columbia Law. Reappeared via Facebook 6 weeks ago. Post Harlan's death. He gets it, the hiding. The family pressure. Said he was done pretending. Wanted to try for real. As if I were the rehearsal. It was one kiss. Ryder. Stupid. Grief-fogged bullshit. But you're the one I choose. The word mocked. Theo's echo amplified. You chose him in that alley. Chose secrets over us. Rage propelled me to pack a duffel of essentials. Camera bags slung like armor, while he begged. On knees now. Tears soaking the rug. I was scared. Dad's gone. Mom's unraveling. And Caleb. He represents the easy out. But you're the hard right. Please. His hand clutched my wrist. Gray eyes storm-tossed. But I wrenched free. The door slamming on his sobs like a guillotine. Wandering Manhattan's veins that night, Times Square's assault of lights blurring through salt-streaked vision, I crashed at Lena's. Her couch a makeshift confessional. Dump the toxicity, she urged over midnight tea. But sleep brought dreams of Jax's tattoos. His laugh. The way he'd whispered, home, under Christmas lights. Betrayal wasn't a clean break, it was barbed wire. Tearing with every tug. Days bled into a week of radio silence, me dodging his texts, I'm sorry. Therapy tomorrow. Give me a chance? Bearing in work, a commission for a queer mag. Portraits of survivors that mirrored my fractures. Then, the call, Eleanor's number. Unfamiliar in my recents. Ryder? It's Jax's mom. He's not right. Hospital. Please. Savannah General was a sterile purgatory. Beeping monitors and antiseptic sting. Jax lay pale in the bed. Foredripped and hollow-cheeked. Eleanor vigil at his side, her face a map of regrets. Hand clutching mine like lifeline. Pills, she whispered. Voice cracking. Mixed with whiskey. After you left. He said it was the only way to silence the voices. Attempted. The word hollowed me. Guilt a tidal wave. Had my flight pushed him over? Or was it the cumulative Harlan's ghost? Caleb's temptation? My ultimatum? He stirred as I approached. Eyes fluttering open, but igniting at my face. Ryder. Broken. I took his hand. Calluses rough from bar taps. Tears blurring the monitors. Idiot, I choked. Thumb stroking his knuckles. You don't get to check out. Not on my watch. Eleanor slipped out. Granting grace. And we talked, raw. Unfiltered, him admitting Caleb was a crutch. A regression to the closet's false safety, me confessing my terror of being the rebound. The fool in love's funhouse. I choose you. Too, I said finally. The words a bridge over abyss. But no more secrets. We build transparent. Recovery was a marathon. Not sprint. Rehab stints in the city? Group therapy circles where Jax shared his ink-born stories. Me shadowing shoots with a steadier lens. Spring unfurled tentative, cherry blossoms dusting Brooklyn like forgiveness, and we mended, stitch by stitch. Caleb faded to a blocked contact. Eleanor visited once. Tentative olive branch in her tentative smile. He looks lighter. Thank you. Humanistic? Perhaps. In the mess, no tidy bows, but growth from gravel. One June evening. Rooftop party in Jax's new place. A walk-up in Bed-Stuy with fire escape views. We danced to vinyl scratches. City sprawl at our feet. Marry me? He asked. Not on knee but heart, ring a simple band etched with waves. I laughed through tears. Yes on lips. As fireworks cracked overhead, not the 4th, but our own declaration. It turned out, wasn't the fitting room frenzy or the alley betrayal. It was this choosing, daily, the flawed beautiful amid the ruins. And in America's vast, bruised heart, we carved our space, unapologetic, unbroken. Summer's humidity clung to New York like a lover who wouldn't let go, turning subways into saunas and stoops into social clubs where neighbors swapped survival tales over iced teas spiked with gossip. Jax and I navigated it all with the cautious optimism of rehab grads, weekly check-ins with his therapist, a no phone after 10 p.m. rule that forced us into board games and bad karaoke, my portfolio swelling with gigs that paid actual rent. Lena dubbed us the Phoenix Fags, toasting our resilience over rooftop barbecues where smoke curled like incense, warding off old demons. But healing's not linear, it's a spiral, circling back to touch wounds just when you think they're scarred over. Mid-July. A package arrived at my door, no return address. Brown paper crinkled like aged skin. Inside, a worn Bible, pages dog-eared at Leviticus, and a letter in Eleanor's looping script. Dearest writer, Harlan's things brought this to light. He kept it hidden, your photos, the ones Jax sent last Christmas. Smiling boys under city lights. He wept over them, called it the sin he couldn't repent. Forgive an old woman her blindness. You've given my son wings. With gratitude, Eleanor. Enclosed, a faded Polaroid of young Jax. Altar boy crisp in robes. Eyes already shadowed by secrets. I showed it to him that night. Dinner simmering on the stove, pasta with basil from the fire escape pots. Our hands brushing in the steam. Just out. Finger tracing the boy's solemn face. Then set it down. Throat working. That sauce. New. The weight of it pressed. Unshed tears glinting. Does it change anything? Best. Sliding arms around his waist. Chin on shoulder. Turned. Cupping my face. Anna. Reverent. Changes everything. Means he fought. To. In his way. We ate in quiet communion after that. Forks clinking like toasts. The Bible shelved not as judgment but artifact, a relic of battles won. August brought a curveball. H&M promotion for Jax, assistant manager. Key to the stockroom. A raise that meant date nights beyond dollar slice pizza. Celebration found us back at that bleaker cafe. Full circle. Where he'd first stolen my coffee and my caution. To empires built on skinny jeans, I quipped. Clinking mugs. But his grin turned serious. Hand over mine. To you. For seeing the mess and staying. The words landed soft, the bomb. And I kissed him there, public, unhurried, earning a whistle from the barista and a flush that crept up his neck. Yeah. Undercurrents stirred. Caleb resurfaced, not in flesh, but pixels, a LinkedIn ping Jax mentioned offhand. Old acquaintance request. Advanced. Old Barb's twitching, but he deleted it mid-sentence. Phone tossed aside. Water under the bridge. You're my river. Trust rebuild? Brick by brick. But I caught myself framing him in photos now, candid shots of sleep-rumpled mornings. His laugh frozen mid-bloom, hoarding proof against phantoms. Fall crept in with equinox winds, stripping leaves to skeletal grace, mirroring the rawness of our growth. I landed a breakthrough, solo exhibit at a Soho gallery. Fractured frames, portraits of queer resilience. Jax's face anchoring the centerpiece, eyes defiant under gallery spots. Opening night was electric, black-tie queers mingling with critics in ironic teas. Champagne flutes chiming approvals. Jax stood beside me in a borrowed blazer. Tattoos peeking like Easter eggs. Whispering encouragements as strangers dissected my soul on canvas. Proud doesn't cover it, he said later. In the alley behind the space, echoing that fateful kisses locale. But reclaimed, pulling me close under sodium hum. Your magic. Ryder Hayes. We made love in the loft afterward. Bodies slick with sweat and success. His mouth a litany on my skin. Collarbone. Navel. The dip of my thigh. Marry me for real? He gasped. Post-tremor. Ring glinting on the nightstand, a promise we'd circled since June. Vegas? City Hall? Your call. Laughter bubbled from me. Joy untethered. City Hall. Vows in the rain. Like us. Tigran. Sealing it with a kiss that tasted of forever, not fairy tale, but forged. Winter loop back. Holidays reimagined. No Savannah summons, but a video call with Eleanor, her face softer. Lines etched with tentative peace, where Jax introduced me proper. My fiancé. The one who saved me. She teared up. Harlan's Bible visible on her shelf like truce flag. Bless you both. Come visit. Doors open. Progress. Humanistic in its humility, no absolution demanded. Just space to breathe. New Year's Eve. We watched the ball drop from a friend's rooftop, fireworks blooming like bruises healing to stars, his arm around me. Steady as horizon. Secret discovered, he murmured, nuzzling my temple. You're my unexpected everything. Earned. Hazel meeting Gray. And kissed him into the countdown. 10. 9. Not as hook or betrayal, but horizon vast. Uncharted. Us. In America's mosaic of heartbreaks and hallelujahs, we'd found our shard. 2 men, mended by mercy, dancing on the edge of what comes next.